On December 11, 2025, the world celebrates the International Mountain Day. It is a reminder of the beauty, fragility, and the importance of high-altitude regions. Around 27% of land surface on Earth is covered by mountains, and they support the life of over 1 billion people. But in regions like Gorno-Badakhshan Autonomous Oblast, where we live, mountains are not only home to people, they are a source of natural hazards.
Mountain communities depend on glaciers for water, valleys for agriculture, and slopes for grazing. They also face unique dangers, such as rockfalls, earthquakes, landslides, and floods. Understanding all these hazards and how vulnerable communities are is the key to protect our life.
Before we dive into analyzing the major natural hazards in GBAO, let's define the key terms. A hazard is a natural process with the potential to cause harm. Imagine a landslide above a village. That's a hazard. Risk is the chance that this hazard will actually impact people or property. And vulnerability, that's how exposed or prepared community is. For example, if the community has early warnings and shelters in place, vulnerability is low.
Badakhshan lies at the center of the Pamirs, one of the most elevated mountain systems of the planet. More than 90% of this region is mountains shaped by glaciers, deep valleys, and some of the steepest inhabited landscapes in Central Asia. The region sits inside an active seismic zone where earthquakes constantly reshape the land. Among all hazards in GBAO, rockfalls and landslides are the most common and the most disruptive. The combination of steep slopes, fractured bedrock, freeze-thaw cycles, and seasonal rainfall create constant tension in the landscape. Here in Khorog, rockfalls happen regularly. In Khorog and Gerleken, large boulders frequently crash onto the road and into the river, sometimes blocking access and threatening homes. Even small rockfalls can isolate communities for hours or days. And in a region where roads are lifelines, every slope failure has a real human impact. As the climate warms, Pamir glaciers melt rapidly, forming unstable lakes behind natural dams made of ice or loose moraine. When these dams fail, the water is released in a sudden flood known as Glacial Lake Outburst Flood, or GLOF. GLOFs are among the most dangerous hazards in GBAO because they move fast and strike without warning. One of the most tragic GLOF events that has occurred in the history of Pamirs occurred in Dasht village in Rosh Khala in 2002. A sudden glacial lake burst sent a massive flood down the valley. 25 people lost their lives, and almost 200 residents were displaced. Houses, livestock, and farmland were swept away in minutes. Another catastrophic flood event happened in Barsem in 2015, when heavy rainfall triggered a debris flow and a moraine dam failure. More than 1,000 people were evacuated, dozens of structures were destroyed, and the main Pamir highway was blocked for weeks. The Pamirs stand where two giant tectonic plates collide, the Indian plate pushing into Eurasia. This collision continuously lifts the mountains and makes GBAO one of the most earthquake-active regions in Central Asia. A major recent earthquake in the Bartang Valley reminded residents of how vulnerable narrow mountain corridors can be. Even moderate earthquakes trigger landslides, block roads, and cut off entire communities. Avalanches are another yet deadly hazard in high elevation villages. One of the most devastating events occurred in Khorog, where an avalanche struck the settlement and caused the death of 5 people. Snow accumulation, steep slopes, and sudden temperature changes make avalanches a recurring winter danger for mountain households.
Rockfalls, floods, earthquakes, and avalanches shape the landscape of GBAO. But the impact of these natural processes depend not only on the strength of the hazard, but on how prepared the people are to face them. Local economies depend heavily on nature, on rivers for water, on slopes for pasture, on unstable terrain for roads. These connections strengthen mountain culture, but they also increase exposure when hazards strike. To understand vulnerability at a more personal level, we spoke with a local resident who has lived through one of these hazards.
Memale understandem daro haifokat famishtu daro charkhaydan ogruzanja yet bad ozum khobat gdam charkha khabar ro dopi yed vadaro اجدام مارت 2005 سالند از رو سبب لب خخرو یفت سیل افتان دنجا خول بورین دود خو بعد زایی تواید رو چیز چود که چرخاب حکومت بعد رو ستو به مردم کسده چیز ترپالی چیدو رو داک چود مالا جوین رو دوست گرتا گفته انجا بزپاس نده جویر مردم رو خونه جوی ستو به کسمه جوین ترپالی سین دون جات ده که در اگروز افسور و نوفق وقتی که وقت بور شوتن به مردم انجا یست.
Risk is not only about nature, it's about preparation. Even in one of the most hazard-prone mountain regions like GBAO, vulnerability can be reduced when communities, institutions, and scientists work together. Across GBAO, organizations like the Aga Khan Agency for Habitat support communities through community-based disaster risk management. Residents learn evacuation planning, first aid, and how to identify early warning signs of landslides and floods. In many villages, safe slopes and gabion walls reinforce unstable terrain and protect homes from rockfalls and erosion. Across GBAO, information boards warning about potential hazards have been installed. These signs show the safe zones, evacuation routes, and instructions on what to do during emergencies. They are not only helpful for local residents, but also for tourists, drivers, and visitors who may be unfamiliar with the terrain. Simple tools like this play a big role in strengthening community preparedness.
Our mountains give us life, water, culture, identity.
But they also demand respect through the hazards they create.
By understanding the hazards, assessing the risks, and reducing the vulnerabilities, we can protect the people who call these mountains home.
International Mountains Day. Let's celebrate and safeguard our mountains.